Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions will come to order. They were voting on, with the hope of sending to the full Senate, S2680, the Opioid Crisis Response Act of 2018. Senator Murray and I have worked with other senators to put that together. Following that, we'll mark up 3 additional health bills, which the sponsors will have a chance to speak about. 2315, Senators Isaacson and Casey's Over-the-Counter Drug Safety Innovation and Reform Act. 2597, Senators Casey and Isaacson's Children's Hospital GME Support Reauthorization of 2018. And S382, Senator Menendez and Murkowski's Firefighter Cancer Registry Act. We're also voting on the nomination of John Parrish, PD, to serve as chair of the National Endowment for the Humanities. We'd also like to vote on the nomination of Sharon Fass Gustafson to serve as General Counsel of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, but that may not fit with the senators' schedules today, so we're likely to do that off the floor later in the week. For senators' convenience, I'm going to aim toward 10:45 for votes on these various roll call amendments, if that's all right. After Senator Murray and I make our opening statements, senators who have amendments may begin to discuss them, and when we have a sufficient quorum, about 10:45, we'll pause, vote, and then we'll continue the discussion, if that's all right. Over the last 6 months, this committee's heard from experts on how the federal government can be the best possible partner as we work to combat the nation's largest public health crisis, the opioid epidemic. We've had 7 bipartisan hearings. We've heard heartbreaking stories. We've heard from Becky Savage, a mom who lost both her sons in the same night after they accidentally overdosed on a combination of alcohol and opioids they took at a graduation party at her home. We heard from Dr. Omar Ababukar, who lost his youngest son, Adam, at 21 after he overdosed. 2 weeks ago, we heard from Jessica Hulsey-Nickel, who lost both her parents to addiction and has dedicated her life's work to helping others battle the same disease. The challenge before us has sometimes been described as needing a moonshot. I believe that solving the opioid crisis might require the energy of a moonshot, but ultimately it's not something that can be solved by an agency in Washington, D.C. I wish we could have a single blockbuster idea that an agency here could deal with and solve the problem. What we can do is take a number of steps to create an environment so that everyone, judges, mayors, counselors, police officers, drug enforcement administration agents, doctors, nurses, parents, pharmacists, hospitals, can succeed in fighting the crisis community by community. That will take money. Last year, we provided $500 million in state grants created in the 21st Century Cures Act to help address the opioid crisis. This year, Congress provided $1 billion in state grants, twice as much as last year. The omnibus spending bill a couple of weeks ago included a total of $4.6 billion, which funds state grants, more research at NIH, and more help for law enforcement. Today, we're voting on legislation which aims to create the environment I described. Last Monday, Senator Murray and I introduced the Opioid Crisis Response Act of 2018. It has a number of sponsors: Isaacson, Manchin, Cassidy, Baldwin, Heller, Kane, Capito, Heitkamp, Hatch, and Smith. I hope today we can vote to approve this legislation so we can present it to Senator McConnell for the full Senate to consider. I would expect that other committees, Judiciary, Finance, maybe Homeland Security, will also have ideas, but if we can present our framework to Senator McConnell, maybe this is something that the Senate can move on this summer. This has been a good process. I want to thank Senator Murray and her staff and our staff and the staffs of many senators. We've had bipartisan hearings, we've listened, we've worked together, and we've produced a result. We have more than 40 different proposals in this bill from 38 different senators, both political parties, including legislation to help stop illegal drugs like fentanyl at the border, accelerate research on non-addictive pain medicine and pain strategies. reduce the number of inappropriately prescribed opioids, and support state interventions for children who have experienced trauma, such as a parent using opioids. I'm going to submit my full opening statement for the record, but the list of participating senators is impressive. For example, Senators Young and Hassan, along with Murray and myself, have a proposal to encourage what comes as close as anything, I believe, to the holy grail of this effort, which is development of non-addictive painkillers, pain strategies, by giving the National Institutes of Health additional flexibility. Senators Hatch, Bennett, Young, and Donnelly would help new non-addictive pain or addictive treatments move through expedited pathways. FDA, Young, and Donnelly would encourage the development of treatments labeled as controlling pain as well as opioids. Senators Johnson and McCaskill worked on a provision to improve detection and seizure of illegal drugs such as fentanyl through stronger coordination of FDA and the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Baldwin and Cassidy worked on a provision toward the same objective, one that would make sure that Customs and Border Protection's on the flagpole for destroying controlled substances at the border, and would strengthen FDA's authority to refuse admission of illegal drugs. Commissioner Gottlieb asked us to consider giving him the authority to make certain opioids available to patients with a set treatment duration, so-called blister pack for 3 to 7 day supply, and a safe way to dispose of unused opioids. There are a number of provisions to help communities on the front line, coming from Portman, White House, Cassidy, Hassan, Collins, and Shaheen have 2 proposals to support peer recovery support services. They have, and as I said, I won't go through all of these, but it's important to emphasize, I think the consensus on this committee and from senators who are not on the committee is this epidemic requires an urgent, effective, and bipartisan response, and I believe that in this proposed legislation, we offer the framework for that. Now, in addition to that, we'll be voting on John Parrish, PD, to serve as chairman of the National Endowment for the Humanities. And as I mentioned, we will consider Sharon Fass Gustafson to serve as general counsel of the EEOC off the floor during a vote later this week. Senator Murray.